Hello and welcome to Wine Blast. I'm Susie Barry and I'm here with my husband and fellow Master of Wine, Peter Richards. And in this episode, we're diving headlong into Bordeaux, but of a slightly different hue than you might imagine.
Yeah, we're all about the whites this time. So not just the reds or even the base.
All about the base, about the base, about the base.
Okay, sorry. Can't believe I gave you that cue.
You did. You queued me up there. Sorry if I need to sing. Feeling happy?
Well, thank you for picking up my wordplay at the very least. Shoddy though it is. We're talking about the Blanc of Bordeaux, the great whites. Not forgetting the fizz and the sweet wines too, like fine Sauternes, of course. Mm-hmm. Because all of this, I think, the white wines of Bordeaux, is a fascinating and delicious side to the region that's not often given enough airtime. And, you know, it's properly historic. We should talk about this more. Did you know, for example, that Bordeaux used to be mainly white, not red? And that Saint-Emilion at one time was pretty much all white rather than red.
The things you learn on a podcast.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought? So this is the second part of our Bordeaux mini-series in partnership with the Bordeaux Wine Council, or CIVB. In the first part, which was Bordeaux in 2021, Series 2, Episode 19, we talked about the bigger picture of Bordeaux and the red wines. I seem to remember some sort of traumatic pop quiz I was forced to endure, including included bats.
There were bats. I think there were moths.
Moths and bats. What else would you expect from an episode on Red Bordeaux?
Little quiz.
We also, which you would expect, we spoke to Bordeaux expert Jane Anson and Jan Todeschini of Chateau in Saint-Emilion about lots of things, from not bats particularly, but non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Space-aged wine, I think we got into, WhatsApp, goats, not the bats, but the goats.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to that one, do check it out. You don't have to, but of course, but it is part of this mini-series. Just to say, I think Jane Anson has actually launched her new website now, which I think we mentioned back then, but anyway, it's gone live. Do check it out. It's janeanson.com, I think. And apparently she's even got NFTs on her site.
Has she? We might learn what they are.
We might finally work out. But also there's a bit of podcast action, which is a bit more familiar to us. Apparently there's a bit of podcast action on her website as well, so it's well worth looking out for that too.
Absolutely. So we also promised a Bordeaux wine giveaway in our first Bordeaux episode. We haven't forgotten that. It will be coming in our third and concluding part of this mini trilogy, coming very soon, so keep your ear to the ground for that as well.
I do think we keep finding ourselves saying we haven't forgotten about things, just to say...
Well, just to convince ourselves that we're not going completely mad.
That would also that we will get round to doing things.
I won't forget.
It's on our list. Anyway,
it's on my list of things to do.
All good things come to those who wait. So coming up in this episode, we have interviews with the brilliant Laure de Lambert Compeyrot of Chateau Sigalas Rabaud in Sauternes, as well as rebel winemaker Olivier Kaznav of Chateau de Belle in Entre-deux-Mers. We've also got some delicious Bordeaux whites to recommend.
We have indeed. I've got some in my glass right now. I can't wait to get going, but I might have to wait, mightn't I? Slap my hands. Stop. Before that, coming back to Jane Anson, actually, we really enjoyed hearing her fascinating views and tips on Bordeaux in general and reds in particular in our first instalment. So we wanted to get her views on the dry whites and the sweets too. And here's what she had to say.
So I've been a big fan of Bordeaux white for a long time as well. I agree. I support it. And I also, if we go back to that question of you want to buy a Bordeaux for €5, £5, I would go white. If you're thinking of at the lower end of the scale, getting quality without having to spend more money, I think white is probably the most reliable kind of wine you're going to get in Bordeaux, because the way that they make it now, there's so much work that has been done in understanding how to keep those aromatics really beautiful and precise. Denny De Bourdieu, who sadly is no longer with us, but he did so much research which really did get out to the winemakers and help them understand what to do. And so I think there are some brilliant wines. And if you want a more foodie style, a more structured style, go to Pessac-Léognan. If I had to pick one appellation probably to drink forever and I wasn't allowed any others, I'd probably go Pessac, because you have great whites as well as great reds. And there's a balance in them, but there's also a sexiness in them. You know, they're not afraid to make a wine which, if you took into a dinner party and you gave it to your friends, that you know that they'd like it and that they'd feel it was a bit of an occasion. Like wines like Smith Oak Lafitte White, you know, or even Les Hôtes de Smith White, which is the cheaper one. I love that wine. And I really always feel confident that if I open it for friends who are not wine lovers, they will say, oh, this is an awesome wine, what is it? And that's, that's fun.
And what about the sweet wines?
Well, okay, so sweet wines, with the best will in the world, they still need to find a way to engage with consumers. They still need to find a way to get back to being relevant. It's a very, they are beautiful wines. They're made in this artisan style, which is not for the faint-hearted. And the poor things every year, it seems, recently, because we've had such changeable climate and this kind of strange thing where very wet, then very dry. It's hard for them because they need a little bit of damp at the end of the summer. They need those mists to produce the noble rot. So we're seeing over and over again, very, very, very small yields. And they were already small yields. So in the best years, you'll tend to find that you'll get about a bottle of wine per vine for red and about a glass of wine per vine for the sweet wines. But today, even that, they'll be lucky if they get that. There have been so many years where they're getting 5 hectolitre per hectare yields, that kind of, and it's just not sustainable. So I really hope so much that they find a way to connect. And we are seeing that. I think that's probably the best part of Bordeaux for wine tourism. We're seeing great hotels opening around Sauternes, and the chateaus are getting more restaurants going. I saw just recently that Giro's doing a farmer's market for producers across Aquitaine, and those kind of things is what they need to do. That they need to find ways to get people to Sauternes, because when they taste them, then people invariably fall in love with them. I think you've got to have a couple of good cocktails as well. I have one of my other recommendations for a Sauternes cocktail would be have a bit of Sauternes, have some champagne, and have some blood orange juice. Put them all together, maybe with a little bit of ice and a slice of orange, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I think we just need to be a bit more fun about how we approach it.
Sauternes, champagne and blood orange juice.
That just
sounds like the best breakfast ever.
I think it's my idea of a perfect cocktail.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love blood orange anyway, but it's certainly fun. And I think Bordeaux, to be fair, needs a bit of that.
I think so. It almost sounds heretical, but equally it sounds fun, and you think that's probably a good sign.
Why not? Why not?
Sauternes a funny one in general, isn't it? It's so hard to make. You have to make it so painstakingly, and you need the right conditions for it to be made. But relatively speaking, it's seriously undervalued for what it is, isn't it?
Most of it, yeah. I mean, not the top names, but most of it.
Actually, but even then, what you'd argue, Echem, how does it stack up value-wise to other things in terms of how it's made, yields? I don't know, but
tiny yields, all that sort of thing.
The important thing is it can be delicious and seriously age-worthy, seriously fine wine.
Yeah,
and it can make a really good match for food, can't it?
The right food. The right food.
Exactly, the right food. So savoury things like cheese, which you wouldn't necessarily think of. And it can also be an aperitif if you like that kind of thing. And I suppose, what's the classic style of Sauternes? It's pretty luscious, isn't it? It's lusciously sweet.
You've got the sort of the honey, apricot, barley sugars, those kind of marzipan
so that noble
characters.
Rot, which is quite an important element of the style, which is what dehydrates the berry and concentrates it, and also gives it extra flavour. Sort of that. How would you define precisely this kind of barley sugar?
It's hard to describe, I think. I mean, people use terms because it depends what works for you. People say cookie dough. There is a certain marzipan character to it, barley sugar, cookie dough, like the uncooked dough somehow, and it's very distinctive. It just is.
Very distinctive,
it really is.
Yeah.
So that is definitely there in Sauternes. But I mean, just moving on a little bit, it's interesting to hear Jane's views on the dry whites from Bordeaux too, isn't it? Especially, I thought that value tip. If you want the best value at the cheaper end, go white.
Fair
enough.
Isn't it?
We've always been great fans of Denny De Bourdieu, lovely man, much missed, and he was so important for Bordeaux and the development of its white wines, wasn't he?
I think the whites really came on with his help. They developed. They've always been important, but actually they just got to a new level.
Yes. I mean that wine we always what was it? Talking memory. Doisy Sec. Yes, which we bought a lot of and absolutely loved.
And I mean, I've always been a massive fan of white Bordeaux. They're not often the best known wines, but they can be fantastic, can't they? Bordeaux can do affordable fresh whites, which is a point well made by Jane. But the best for me when they're
for
oaked
both of us, I think, when you're going to say oaked. Yeah.
They're so distinctive in that style, aren't they? With a sort of piercing citrus character, but also quite exotic tangerine notes and nutty and creamy. They're quite hedonistic, really, but always kind of quite fresh and foodie.
Yeah.
What was that wine that blew you away?
What was the wine that blew me away? You do not remember?
Seminal for you.
Pavillon Blanc. Pavillon Blanc de Chateau Margaux, or by Chateau Margaux. I mean, it's just the most phenomenal Bordeaux white. Totally captivating. It's funny, isn't it, with wines like that, I'll always remember where we were. We were in that lovely sunny garden and who we were with, our lovely friends who were very
generous.
They were generous because they brought the wine. Yes, it was nothing to do with us, was it? But really mind-blowing.
Yeah. So these wines can be really fine, really memorable. And I think they can also be pretty diverse in style.
They are.
The two main grapes are Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, which we know sort of pretty well. They are 92% of the white grape plantings in Bordeaux. But there's also a bit of Muscadelle and a few others in the mix like Sauvignon Gris. So that diversity is important as well. But the whites are usually blended, but it can vary, and they're grown all over the region, so they can crop up in really unexpected places. When I went to Bordeaux recently and I was in Saint-Emilion and I tasted a Chardonnay that had been grown in Saint-Emilion. I mean, you don't expect it, but it's there. And actually, there's a bit of history to that too.
Yeah. So, what was the point you were making though about Saint-Emilion being white back in the day?
Yeah, exactly.
I genuinely didn't know that.
And some of this comes from Jane's excellent book Inside Bordeaux by Jane Anson. If you go back to the Middle Ages, some areas of Bordeaux, like Saint-Emilion, were pretty much all white wine. We'll touch on it a bit later on.
Isn't it?
But
really.
Jane says that in 1969, whites accounted for 59% of all declared harvests. So, by far the majority of wine in Bordeaux, as recently as the late 60s, was white.
Yeah.
Red wine only overtook whites for the first time in 1970. So Bordeaux, thinking of Bordeaux just as a red region, is fairly recent. Even, what was Claret, the origin of that word, seems to be almost certainly to have been a blend of whites and
like
reds.
Like rosé, wasn't it? Yes, but to be fair, now what you're saying really is the picture is very different, isn't it?
Exactly, of course. Only 9% of Bordeaux's vineyard is white these days, and 4/5 of that is for dry and 1/5 is for sweet. So
it's a teeny amount of sweet. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's really small. They're pretty small numbers all around, aren't they? But, Jane Anson makes the point that this is just as much about fashion and consumer demand as it is about terroir. That there's great potential for white wines all over Bordeaux. And one producer I was speaking to said white is starting to come back a bit, but partly because it's easier to make and sell it at the cheaper end at the moment, which isn't obviously a great reason. Yeah. But, there could be a shift back towards that over time. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, although I imagine with climate change, you might actually expect more red, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see, won't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way, and not just because of climate change. You can harvest whites early and you can still make them really, really well. So, you never know.
So who knows? Anyway, let's move on to our first interview. We were lucky enough to secure some time with Laure de Lambert Compeyrot, winemaker and co-owner of Chateau Sigalas Rabaud. That's a first growth Sauternes property, not very far from Chateau d'Yquem, very famous Yquem. Laure had a successful career in Paris in antiques and advertising before she joined the family business, the wine business, as the 6th generation.
That's not bad going, is it? 6th generation.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it, you've got to be pretty brave.
Yeah.
Join at that point. She's not afraid of a challenge. We know that with Laure. So anyway, I asked her what she felt about the white wines of Bordeaux.
I'm very excited because Bordeaux was white before. Bordeaux before 1977 was white, and today really red. When people think Bordeaux, they think red. And for me, it's something like to reappropriate my history. And that's why I was very excited to explore the Semillon, an old forgotten grape variety, actually.
You've been described as a rupturiste or a disruptor in Sauternes. Why is that?
I like to explore new solutions. When you are in a great terroir, you want to try many things. At Sigalas Rabaud, we can do everything. It's like when you have a nice car, you like to push it to see what is under the hood. And for me, it's exactly the same. I like to talk to the border, but I never compromise with quality. I never go out of the border.
Now, as part of this disrupting, you've introduced a no sulphur added wine, Le Cinq de Sigalas Rabaud, which is one of your sweet wines. Can you tell us about your approach and your rationale with that wine?
Always in the same sense, to explore what the great terroir can give. Like many people in Bordeaux, I'm very interested in ecology, working with less inputs, but I also have a classical approach to wine. Wine doesn't make itself. I don't feel like a naturalist. I'm very pragmatic and quality always above all. That's what I try to do with the five, something new to explore, and with the magical botrytis, yeah.
And has it been successful not adding sulphur?
I think it's different. It's different because it's no potential of aging, that's sure, and the wine oxidates very, very quickly. But I like the aromas in the beginning. It's like when you are in front of your tank. So that's
so you can smell the aroma,
exotic fruits, and it gives acidity to the wine. I think it reflects our original terroir too, but in another way, and that's really interesting.
So the Le Cinq is deliberately an early drinking, a younger drinking wine.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a rosé, you have to drink it very, very fast.
So Sauternes has been described, and I quote, as a wine made by masochists, drunk by hedonists. What do you make of that description?
No, for me, it's absolutely the opposite, the contrary. If you consider that working more in more complicated conditions, yes, it could be a masochism. But when at the end you produce something incomparable, it's exactly the opposite. At the end, you don't get pain, but an intense pleasure. So no, I don't. I'm not at all masochist, but really hedonist.
Oh, and why should people drink more Sauternes?
Just because it's something delicious, an extraordinary product with a wide aromatic, a wine of emotion, a nice value for money. And I think a wine easy to match with multiple dishes at all age. Young Sauternes as an aperitif, mature with a dish, old with a cheese. And it's a wine that goes through time. So there's so much reason to buy Sauternes, yeah, and to drink Sauternes.
Do you have a favorite match?
Oh, yes. I think it's very traditional. I am classical, but with Roquefort. I don't like too much dessert, but also turn with my 2000 with Roquefort today. It's so a nice time. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds too good. I want it now. But no, moving on from Sauternes, you also make dry whites, including La Sémillante, which is an oak-aged old vine Sémillon. Can you tell us about your dry white wines?
La Sémillante. It's a great love story. These old Sémillons of Bordeaux, planted in high density on the great terroirs, are something unique. And for me, it was just une rencontre.
A meeting?
A meeting, sorry. A meeting in my cellar. Because I wanted to explore, that's what I explained just before, and to try to produce dry white wine. The first time, 2 barrels, one of Sauvignon and one of Sémillon, and every day I tasted the wine, and I saw that I had something unique in my cellar, and I discovered that. I didn't expect that. That's why I asked some people to open their cellar, and I was very lucky because I tasted very old Sémillon 1954 dry from Chateau Gillette, an old Chateau Fiozal, and it was absolutely exceptional. And I understood Sémillon could be absolutely understanding. And actually, today, of course, people are working more and more on dry white wine, and because they are great wines.
They are indeed. Yes, they really are. So you now make that regularly, La Sémillon and Sémillon. How long have you been making that?
I started in 2009, but in the beginning it was a blend, and now 100% of Sémillon, but always a blend because with two maturities, with on citrus and exotic. So I wait before the two harvests.
And you were saying you focus on sustainability, and I think you're experimenting with biodynamics, aren't you? Is that right?
When you are wine grower, when you are farmer, you're interested in your soil, of course, in sustainability of your culture, in your plant in heritage, and you explore always different ways to work in relation with nature. And like 65% of the Bordeaux vineyards, we have been awarded the label High Environmental Value, the highest level. And we work and do research in the vineyards with my neighbors. We are very interested in agroforestry, like Cheval Blanc today. And we follow very closely young companies working in robotics, in drones, etc.
But is it not slightly tricky in a microclimate like Sauternes, where you've got the perfect conditions for botrytis, which are moist, damp in the mornings? Is that not really challenging with biodynamics and organics to manage that?
Yes, it is, of course. And that's so challenging. And that's what I like. You say, are you masochism? No, masochist? No, but
masochist.
Masochist, sorry. But I think I like the game and I like the challenge. And perhaps to produce Sauternes, you must be like that. Yeah.
Now, just moving, final question really. You've also opened a guest house. You've just won a major tourism award. Congratulations. How important is tourism to the future of your estate and Sauternes and actually Bordeaux in general, do you feel?
We have a wonderful place, a very beautiful Illy. We have on the road of Grave and Sauternes an incredible wealth of an heritage, mini castle, an exciting ecosystem. And yes, tourism is an economic opportunity for the whole region. At the time of post-COVID, people are happy to spend time in quite a nice landscape. We are so happy to share and to have good moments with great wine. And finally, what is a wine? That's why we produce wine, to share with people, with friends.
What a lovely thought. Laure, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Thanks to you, Susie.
It's nice to hear the Bordelais are keen to share their wines with us. It's not something you hear the whole time. You know,
I think they probably are.
It sounds simple, but you know, it is actually. It's nice to hear that. And generally speaking, do you think it's fair to say that the Bordelais are opening up a bit now? You're encouraging, actually, you know, actively encouraging people to visit.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't always the case in the past. I think it's fair to say.
No, but I mean, let's face it. There are so many things to see and do in Bordeaux as a visitor these days. You know, one development is the Cité du Vin, which is an amazing building with interactive exhibits, and actually that was where Laure was speaking to me from. She was picking up her tourism award, wasn't she? And apparently the Wi-Fi is better there than it is at the Chateau. But I loved her comment particularly about wanting to push the car to see what's under the hood in terms of trying new things with winemaking, experimenting, exploring, see where she can go with it.
Yeah, I love that expression. It just captured the whole thing really, really well, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that is exactly what makes Bordeaux quite exciting right now. You know, Jane touched on it in our last episode too. That sort of restless innovation, that's always been the case in Bordeaux in the past. Sometimes we don't necessarily give it the credit for that.
No, but we'll come to that in our next interview.
Yeah,
won't we?
Exactly. We'll talk about that in the next interview. But I don't know. I do think there seems to be a sense of a new era in the region right now.
I agree, totally.
Sustainability, exploring new styles. All these things. I think it's just a new frontier now, and it's a different region from what it was before. Laure, what did she mention? She mentioned robotics, didn't she, and drones, as well as the sort of agroforestry drive that she's doing, as well as people like Chevelle, Blanc, which Jane talked about.
Yeah, Jane mentioned that in our last episode, didn't she? Yes,
to plant trees, and these are some of the most expensive wines in the world. So each of those vines is presumably highly profitable, but you're taking them out to put in trees. It's really interesting. It seems like a new mentality in Bordeaux now.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Absolutely. I mean, maybe partly fueled by climate change, the need to adapt and innovate being greater than ever, really. Let's face it, for everybody in the wine world. Laure did mention actually to me that they're changing their canopy management and rootstock selection because of this. And I think it's typical across the region. People are reevaluating. They are, as we said, disrupting.
Yeah. Disruption happens in wine. It happens in Bordeaux.
Rupturiste.
It's harder to say than to
I find that really hard to say. Yes, I don't know why, but anyway, disrupting
it's
is easier.
After a glass of golden Sauternes slipped down.
That's my problem.
Have another mouthful.
Why did I not think of that?
I also did like a comment about she denied being a masochist, didn't she, first off? And then she...
I also love the way she pronounces masochist.
Yeah, it's not
so
easy as well.
beautiful.
But then she said, but she does love the game. And I think that was a lovely distinction to make. She loves the game. And you think, the challenge, absolutely. We said she's someone who loves a challenge. Now, someone else who loves the game and who also likes Sauternes, as well as dry whites, is Olivier Kaznav. Now, I caught Olivier after a morning in the cellar, and he proudly showed me his sort of wine-stained hands on the screen. So Olivier is originally from Libourne, but he didn't have a particular background in wine. Apparently, he caught the bug aged 17. He owns Chateau in Entre-deux-Mers and has been described as a renegade and perhaps the most radical winemaker in Bordeaux. So clearly a man not afraid to defy convention. And I started by asking him what motivates him to do that.
Only the pleasure, It's not for communication. It's not because I'm angry against somebody or something or some institution. I don't care, really. I don't care all that. No, it's just because I have some ideas and I sometimes too much, but sometimes I have good ideas. So I try to bring them until a result, and that's why I don't care. In fact, the weight of the tradition, I don't care. For me, it's not for me.
You manage the estate along biodynamic lines since 2016. How has that changed things for you, for the land, and most importantly for the wines?
That's a big question. For me, a lot, because I really knew with the pleasure of walking and working in the vineyards, because it's more healthy for me and for my surroundings. For the soils, it's incredible. It was funny this summertime in June, a lot of rain in Bordeaux, a lot of. We have never seen that since 25 years. All the estate around were under the water, but here no, because drainage. The soil is much more living. We have earthworm like snakes, like that. They make a very good job in the soils, plus many plants. So the drainage is fantastic. That means it's not only for the rain, it's for anything, for oxygen when the soil needs oxygen, is for roots when the roots need to get some water deeper or to get freshness. It's good for everybody, The vineyard is more healthy. The color change. It's not the green is different. The green of the leaves has changed comparing to my neighbor, It's not the same green. It's not too pale and not too dark. It's between. Maybe it's natural greenness of the leaves. And the wine, frankly, I don't know. I don't know the wine. I'm too involved. It's so difficult. Sometimes for my wine, I cannot say yes. For some wines, I try blindly, I can say, okay, this wine is at least organic or maybe biodynamic, because I have two sensations. One is sometimes purity. That's a very good comment. And sometimes it's not purity, but it's a naturality. That means some defaults, but some qualities bigger than defaults. And not nature wine. Naturality is different. Currently, it's very difficult because it's a rule. But when you are in biodynamic, your mind has changed, so you make wine differently. So it's very difficult to analyze and say, oh, this one is,
No, I really understand what you're saying. I think it's very difficult and fair enough not to be drawn on exactly what differences it makes. Who knows? But for the land and for you, it does make a big difference. But talking about your wines, it's notable in your wines that you're aiming for lower alcohols, food-friendly wines that aren't showy, just very drinkable. You also say, or you have said, you make the opposite of star wines. Just tell us more about your approach in that sense.
Okay. As I said before, I make the wine I like. So I don't care about wine spectator, what they expect, or, I don't care. All of that, I'm very happy if I have a good notation, for sure. But I follow my taste. I follow my wine have changed, since 20 years I make wine. They have changed because I've changed. So I make the wine with lower degree, with a more, less aging for some, more for others. I go more on the extremes because of experience and so on.
And, Échappée Belle in both white and red are non-vintage wines.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare. It's a region, Bordeaux is a region where it's all about the latest vintage. So why do that?
There are three reasons. Main one is I'm fed up with the vintage in Bordeaux, this holy vintage. So I say bad word, and we erase the vintage. Like in Champagne, you will never ask to a Champagne producer, why don't you put a vintage? Because it's the tradition. So I follow this tradition. Second reason is sometimes, as this particular range, Échappée Belle, red and white, I want a result. Okay? I'm not working on the terroir and so on. I want a result in mouth. So sometimes I blend vintage, like in Champagne. Sometimes you have 1, 2, 3 vintage different in the bottle. Okay? And the third reason is, I don't remember, is mainly, it's to change from the vintage. It's too demanding now, the vintage. So they will not want a 21 because it's not a very good one. No, we can make good wines also because we work hard, and we will not sit on our stock and say, okay, let's wait next year,
And the Échappée Belle Blanc isn't like other Bordeaux whites. It's mostly Muscadelle with a bit of Sauvignon Blanc. Why did you go down that route?
First reason, I don't like Sauvignon in Bordeaux. I don't like the style. I like some Sauvignon, but very few. Okay. For me, Sauvignon must be in a very specific terroir, calcaire, limestone. On that, and with a good ripeness. Okay, I have my opinion on that. For Bordeaux. So I don't like Sauvignon. Sauvignon is okay, but I've discovered Muscadelle in Dordogne with the Luc de Conti. I really, really like this wine, and I've heard that there are many in Entre-deux-Mers, in Sauternes, but they don't like the grape because it's not so easy to run. Okay, and also the wine is interesting after 1 or 2 years of aging, even in a stainless tank. So it's not for Bordeaux people because normally in end of July you have sold all your last vintage. So they don't know what to do with the grape, so they don't renew the vineyard with Muscadelle. They give up. And I try to defend that. I try to show other possibilities in Bordeaux, which were very traditional, you know. A point important, in between two wars, in Bordeaux, you have registered more than 13 white grapes. 13. Un, trois, 13. So now we have 3, you know, 2. We have 2, you know, in fact. So that show that historically Bordeaux were producing much more white than red first in until the 50s, and we had many grapes like Chenin. You know, I had plenty of Chenin in my vineyard. Just I look at the window, I see my Chenin grapes. You know, because they were. I like the grape, but they were in before, and we have the good soils for that. So just to explain that you have not only Sauvignon, Semillon, and we need to defend this patrimoine.
Yeah, heritage. The heritage of Bordeaux, which, as you say, there's a lot of white heritage in Bordeaux. You've also started making an orange wine, the Vortex Atlantique, which I tried recently. It's delicious. You know, tell us about that. Why are you doing that in Bordeaux? You know, again, something a bit unexpected.
Okay, because I already do one in Roussillon with a friend. It's called Cazenave, but it's a very heavy orange wine. You know, more than between 3-4 weeks of maceration. Wow, it's 15 degrees. It's a heavy metal orange wine. You know, Grenache gray and white grapes. So very tannic. And my idea was to make something lighter, something more elegant, and also more accessible, because I don't like these wines are fashionable at the moment. Okay, that's why people who produce wine, I don't know, at 10 euros. Okay, this one will be 20. Why? You don't know, because it's not a lot of work more than the red. It's the same. So my idea also was to make an orange wine at the same price as the Chevelle range, you know, because it's the same work, and it's not because it's fashionable that I will double my price. For me, that's the best way to kill the product, you know. And it's funny to change, you know. I have many other projects. You know. I'm making a Rancio in Muscadelle. I'm making a black and white grape blend, you know, Merlot, Semillon. Okay, so many projects are in my mind or in the cellars already. Just because even I come back to history, they did the same before, you know. It was okay, it was working. So why not doing now, you know, to change? I'm curious about that.
So the future of Bordeaux may be a little bit white.
Yeah, a better respectability for the white. That's what I expect.
Olivier Kaznav, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, hope meeting you soon in real.
Earthworms like snakes. I'm not sure I'd like that at all.
That might catch your pique your interest.
But the Rancio Muscadelle, you know, I do like the sound of that.
Now
he's doing some really interesting things, isn't he?
He really is. He has for a while. You know, non-vintage stuff. Really, you know, the focus on elegance in his wines. Also the orange wine, you know, and the Chenin Blanc he's got planted. You know, he is clearly doing a lot of experiments. I think he alluded to it, didn't he? So it'd be fascinating to go and visit him.
We need to visit.
To find out
dying
exactly
to go.
what he's got cooking. It's like you could just see him, sort of all these little pots and steaming and bubbling away. And, you know.
I mean, you said he had just come from his cellar, hadn't he? But did he say anything about the 2021 harvest?
Yes, he did.
Vintage?
Yeah. The 2021 harvest. It was before we started recording, actually. But you know, he said his hands weren't stained as much as normal to make the point that it's a much lighter vintage. I mean, I think it's something we've talked about this in terms of England, haven't we? But 2021 is not the easiest vintage in many parts of Europe. I think it's been a really hard vintage in Bordeaux. Lots of rain, weird weather patterns, a bit of rot, you know, as there has been in the UK. You know, he says it's not as bad as 2013. It might be a sort of lighter version of 2014, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But either way, people are have had to work hard and continue to work hard.
It's
not easy.
It's not an easy life, is it, being a winemaker? Good Lord.
You have to have a sense of humour.
But it was,
Olivier does.
what was another interesting thing I thought was how he's rescuing and focusing on Muscadelle, which is really not a variety you see we would see or talk about a lot, really. We think of Semillon and Sauvignon and a little bit of Muscadelle, but his is good, isn't it?
It really is. The Chateau Blanc non-vintage it's well worth trying. It's 15 quid at pipwine.co.uk. So the current wine apparently is a blend of the 2020, 19 and 18 vintages. It spent 9 months on the lees, and it's just, it's really serious and mouth-filling, quite sort of grapey and honeyed with a touch of orange rind, just sort of lovely rich texture and spice. And more important than everything, it's just a bit different. It's
My
not
mouth is watering.
It's not your average expression. No, I'm sorry, we haven't got any here.
I was just about to say, on which note, we have been tasting a few whites, haven't we? And we have some to recommend, do we not?
We absolutely do. So okay, we're going to quick fire through this. First up, it's not a dry white or a sweet wine. It's a fizz, because of course Bordeaux does fizz. Clermont de Bordeaux. It's not a hugely renowned style, but you can do it there. And sometimes there's some interesting things that go into it. So this is the Premier's Clermont de Bordeaux Brut non-vintage. It's about 10 to 12 quid or $15 to $20 in the US. So it's pretty good value. And it's a blend of Semillon, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Muscadelle.
I hadn't realised Cabernet was in there.
There's often some red grapes thrown into Clermont de Bordeaux because, of course, you make
really
them
nice,
as a white wine like you would do Pinot Noir, wouldn't you? This one spent 12 months on the lees, and it's quite rich, isn't it? It's quite rich and bready and satisfying.
It's just well made, and it's a really enjoyable Clermont.
It's quite refreshing. It's Moorish. It's a bit buttery. It's just great value.
Good value.
Right,
really
over to you.
good value.
What have you got?
So, in the spirit of good value options, I've got the Calvet limited edition Sauvignon Blanc 2020, which is about $12 in the US or £9 at Waitrose, Ocado, Co-op. But obviously it can be often on discount.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie here. I'm not a fan of the packaging. It doesn't look very contemporary. It's quite old-fashioned. And I think that sort of undersells the wine, because when you taste it, it is tangy, it's fresh, it's got that sort of classic pea pod and tomato leaf of Sauvignon. There's some nice texture. It's just a really lovely bottle of Bordeaux. It's got a Bordeaux taste and it's Bordeaux Sauvignon. And you think, brilliant. I just wish they'd put it in a slightly more contemporary package.
Well, I agree. It's a lovely, very classic Bordeaux expression of Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. And it's really lovely and great value, I think.
9
especially
quid,
when it's discounted. Yeah. So picking up on Jane's tip for good value in Bordeaux, look to the whites. That's a really good option. So I've got one that's a bit different in style, but equally, I think, amazing value. It's the Cuvee Clémence 2019 by Chevelle. Kangao, Entre deux Mers. It's oak-aged. It's 70% Sauvignon Blanc. It's 20% Semillon, 10% Muscadelle. It's that classic oak-aged Bordeaux style, that sort of creamy tangerine, but it's got really refreshing acidity. I think, for me, it's spot on in terms of what I want from an oaked white Bordeaux. And it's really good value. At the moment, it's under 10 quid on offer at Vinatis. We don't know them particularly, but... that's online in the UK, or you can get it under €10 in Germany and France. That is a total steal.
I suppose we ought to say at this moment, it is quite hard, isn't it, to know whether you're getting an oak aged or a very fresh style of Bordeaux. It's a bit like white Rioja, or it's really tricky, isn't it, to know? I would say probably as a massive generalisation, this is probably an exception to the rule. The oak aged ones tend to be a bit more expensive, don't they?
Usually talking sort of 15 quid plus for a good oak aged.
Because otherwise, how do you know? Unless you absolutely know the wine.
But then you can talk about the same about Riesling or
there's lots.
Yes, whatever.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Sometimes you don't know what exactly the style, or getting to know a good producer and just following them.
I think that's probably the way to do it, isn't it? But anyway, moving up the price charts, which is what we're going to do now, I've got two pretty impressive dry whites here. The first is Lamelle Blanc de Chateau Clarke 2019. Which is smelling and tasting absolutely delicious. It's $26.50 from Belle Davis McCraith, US about $35 to $40. But you've got that complexity. It's layered, it's oaky, but there's some lovely fruit there in a very kind of grapefruity, more,
I think that's
more
what I love.
herbal way.
That's what I love about white Bordeaux. Often you get that pink grapefruit. I love that.
And it's almost got kind of Chablis style minerality, but then more nutty, orangey characters that you would expect from Bordeaux. And then actually the other one I've got is one of Laure's wines, the one we talked about, La Semillon de Sigalas 2015. This is $27.95 at Phil Glass and Swigat. You can also get it in the US around $25. I think it's also in New Zealand, available in New Zealand. And this is really complex. It's full-bodied. You know, it's you can see from the colour, can't you? It's a really golden, full-bodied, dry Bordeaux white. You've got lots of orange peel there, roasted nuts. There's a spiciness. You know, it needs some good food to go with it, doesn't it? Something hearty.
Well, what food?
Well, I was thinking about some of these more oaky Bordeaux wines, and I'm thinking really something for me classically French, where you know when you get that French casserole, I don't even know what you'd call it, where it's mushrooms or morels with some chicken but on the bone with the skin, and you pan fry it and then make it into a casserole with some creamy sauce and maybe wine and mustard and that sort of thing. I think that would be delicious. Equally, just some aged Comté. Or another thing I thought, you know, something like a really, I'm going to call it tarte because it's French, so it's a tarte. In England, it's a quiche. But, you know, like a cheese and caramelized red onion style quiche, tarte, whatever, would be a warm slice of that with some nice buttery pastry.
I'm going to have to stop you there because you're going to talk about food all day. But
I know,
once
you get me going.
Have you heard that thing on the internet, which is the take on the Michael Jackson song, Billie Jean, and it goes pizza tart and pizza tart and pizza, and it's Billie Jean, and it's a French cuisine does Billie Jean, and it's hilarious. If you can, I don't know how the hell you find that, but it goes.
Where
the first
did
thing
you
is pizza, and it goes pizza tart and pizza tart and pizza. And anyway,
maybe if we can't find it, you'll have to do the whole song for us.
Maybe we need to just play it on the next podcast.
Absolutely.
Either way,
new
but I mean,
theme.
you know, the Semillon is just as much about age though as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a lovely Semillon character coming through.
It's got some beauty. It's really lovely. Both of those are really, really lovely
so
wines.
Much diversity in white Bordeaux that you can discover. It's not credited enough. Anyway, I mean, I think it is amazing. Anyway, so we're going to move on from the dry whites to the sweet whites. Just a couple of wines to finish on. The first one is Chateau Rame, R-A-M-E, 2018 from Sainte-Croix-du-Mont. It's a good value option. It's 13 quid for 50 CL, so 3/4 of a bottle at Majestic Wine in the UK. You can get it in the US for about $20 to $25. It's just, I think, for the value, Sainte Croix, these sort of other
outlying
appellations,
places,
exactly,
yes,
not just
not
Sauternes.
the well-known
they can make
Sauternes.
some really good value sweet wines, very much in the Sauternes style. So this is just full of kind of honey and roasted pear and barley sugar. And importantly, when you drink it, it's not too sickly sweet. So again, you can have this with
some of the. I mean, I would say
food.
the sweet wines of Bordeaux don't tend to be crazily sweet, do they? So
well,
they're obvious. They are sweet
styles,
in isolation, but
can be really opulent, and partly because the acidity is not quite as racy as something like Tokaj
or a really
a Riesling.
Trockenbeer and Auslese Riesling.
You know, I think we prefer the ones that are slightly lighter as well because it's not so full on. So the other one I've got here is the Lieutenant de Sigalas 2015, another wine from Laure. I think it's their second sweet wine. It's about 25 quid for a full bottle at Harrogate Wines. You know, it's really sort of clean and precise, elegant, and it's got lovely acidity. Yeah. It's quite lifted, so it's sweet, but the impression is not of cloying sweetness.
It's a lovely wine, and the top wine also is made in the same style, isn't it?
It's a very similar style, but we love this one because it's really good value.
It's obviously much less expensive.
Halves of this at about 15 quid. It's also available in the US. It's well worth trying. And I think that we did actually try it with Laure's recommendation of Roquefort, didn't we?
Yes,
beautiful.
I mean, there is a reason why some things are classic matches, isn't there? And you know, Sauternes and blue cheese, you know, Sauternes and Roquefort, absolute match made in heaven with the saltiness and the creaminess, and then that beautiful orange barley sugar nutty fruit that you get and spice, and it's just a beautiful
washes you away on waves of golden bliss.
Bordeaux-ness. Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's to the white wines of Bordeaux. Thanks to the CIVB and also to Jane Anson, Laure de Lambert, Compeyrot, and Olivier Kaznav.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, we'd be hugely appreciative. It does help because other like-minded people can find us. Plus, you might even be able to win the odd prize, you know. Check out our last two podcast episodes for more details about that, but we'll have many more opportunities to come as well.
And don't forget, we'll have Bordeaux-themed bottles up for grabs in our next and final part of this mini-series on the region, coming very soon, which will focus on the hotbed of innovation that are the Bordeaux Côte. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Until next time, cheers.